Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everyone to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, joined as always by Jeff Torrey. And today we are now halfway through the fantasy football regular season. So we want to do a little mid-season awards kind of, or thoughts, at least one award, one that's not, I mean, we can call it an award, but it's not something you want to win. It's going to be basically, we'll do fantasy MVP so far halfway through the season, and then our biggest bust, our biggest disappointment of the year so far. So we'll start us off good with an MVP. Through 8 weeks of the season, Jeff, who would be your fantasy MVP?
I don't think this one's going to be too much of a surprise, but it's got to be Derrick Henry for me. I mean, the guy's running out of his mind. He has, 10 touchdowns in 7 games. He's, besides for week one, he's been putting up tremendous numbers. And even week one wasn't bad. It was just like an average game. So he's by far my number one.
It is. He is the number one. It's not even close anymore.
Yeah.
So Derrick Henry in standard scoring, he is 55 points ahead of second place, Jonathan Taylor.
Wow.
55 points ahead after only 8 games. That is a major difference. He's averaging in standard 24.1 points per game. Okay, so Eckler's actually higher if you look at points per game. Eckler's at 17 points per game. So in one single game, Derrick Henry is getting you 7.1 more points per game in standard scoring, over a touchdown more a game than the second place. That's a little bit of an advantage, I would say. Even let's look at PPR, because you don't think of Derrick Henry as a guy who's going to catch a lot of balls, so his advantage is slightly less, right? Mm-hmm. It's still 5.1 points per game higher than second place Eckler. He has 26.6 points per game in PPR. Eckler's at 21.5. That I haven't seen like a difference like that. It's been probably an extremely long time. He's just so far above everybody else. You know what's crazy looking at this? Second place right now is Deandre Swift, but in PPR. It's kind of cool.
He really
but
number two?
In points per game, he'd be slightly lower, but he'd be like 5th though in points per game, which is cool. But Derrick Henry's just so far and away better right now than anybody else. The other big names Saquon's been hurt, Dalvin was hurt a little bit, and yet, there's all these other guys that have either been hurt or not, maybe not like just dominating. Derrick Henry, maybe I'll jinx him by saying this, but this guy doesn't seem to get hurt. He doesn't seem to slow down. It doesn't seem to happen. I feel like it's impossible for him to get hurt.
You were jinxing the crap out
I
of
am.
him.
I don't own him anywhere, so it's okay.
So we don't care.
It's crazy to me. Do you see it slowing down? I don't see how.
Injury would be the only thing,
right?
And he has stayed really, really healthy, and that team is going to give him a ton of carries. He's going to be their key. So unless they want to rest him for whatever reason, but yeah, I don't see it slowing down at all. No more than I've seen any of these other top guys slow down, right? Jonathan Taylor could have the same fate. He gets a ton of carries with, and he's not quite as big as Derrick Henry. So yeah, I don't know. Just because he's number one, I have a feeling a lot of people will say he can't keep it up, but I don't see why he can't.
Okay. Yeah, his bye week's not till week 13, so hopefully, if you have him, you're probably dominating right now anyway, so maybe you won't worry about that. His playoff schedule's Pittsburgh, San Francisco, Miami. So it's not maybe the easiest in the world, those first two, but it's not very hard either. It's fine. He's going to have a good run. So I do want to bring up a second name, though, because there's only 2 options possibly for this award. It's Derrick Henry's far and away, you would think. Number 2 is Cooper Kupp. And again, so Cooper Kupp is what he's done, almost like compared to where he was drafted. You could make the case maybe that he's more valuable depending on where you drafted him, because Derrick Henry was a top 5 pick in a draft. Cooper Kupp was not. You're getting him a couple rounds later. And at wide receiver in PPR, he's at 27.2 points per game, actually more than Derrick Henry in PPR. But he is he's in PPR 5.7 points ahead of second place Tyreek Hill in points per game. So it's about the same difference between first and second that Derrick Henry has. In standard, it's not quite as much in standard. It's only about 3.3 point difference in between him and Jamar Chase, which is number 2, which that's a big surprise too. That'd be like one of my biggest surprises, Jamar Chase number 2. Would you?
There's a lot of people to be surprised about,
right? Oh, yeah, pull up that list. It's crazy.
You could be surprised by him, Marquise Brown, Deebo Samuels, Mike Williams finally getting it together.
A lot of those.
Yeah.
But Kupp is so far and away, again, number one, which is crazy. You don't usually get this in a fantasy season where two players are so far ahead of everybody, and in our main league, one guy has both.
Yeah, I know. Well, good for him.
How are we going to do anything, Jeff? Think about this. He has number one, Derrick Henry. He has number two in total points, Jonathan Taylor. He has Cooper Kupp. We're screwed.
I don't know. We have to. I don't know.
Oh, man. What are you going to do? But those are the two. Those guys, it's Derrick Henry for sure is the MVP. Cooper Kupp would be runner-up for me. But disappointments. Now, there's a few of those to go around too, right?
Oh, there's plenty. Who
would be your top pick for disappointment on the year?
My top pick, and it breaks my heart a little bit because I believe he played all games, and it's really not necessarily his fault, but Allen Robinson has got to be my number one. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen such a fall off. Usually if you have a good wide receiver, you can figure out a way to get him the ball. And it felt like with Mitchell Trubisky, that was what was happening. Not a good quarterback, found a way to get him the ball. He was very productive. And then just pretty much a year removed from that situation, you thought it couldn't get any worse. Oof, and he just fell off a cliff, and he cannot get any production, and he is way down there. He is what?
Wide receiver 65 in standard.
65.
He
has played every game.
Yeah, he's 4.4 points per game in standard scoring right now. Freddie Swain, who has played all the games too, Freddie Swain is one spot ahead of Allen Robinson with 31.8 total points in standard. Allen Robinson has 31.
Freddie Swain had a negative game.
Freddie Swain has legitimately been better than Allen Robinson.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So he's my. I hate saying it, but yeah, he's got to be the biggest disappointment.
I mean, Allen Robinson has been at the same level as Paris Campbell in points per game, and same level as Chester Rogers in points per game, same level as John Ross in points per game. Like, it is just unreal, and that's in all standard, but still, he was. I pulled up the Fantasy Pros consensus ranks. He was number 12. He was the number 12 receiver. That's a wide receiver one in 12-team leagues. There's teams that Allen Robinson is their wide receiver one, and that's what you got. So let me see. In PPR, he's a little better, right? Wide receiver 59 in PPR. 59. Kadarius Toney has played he played like 2 games essentially, and he has more points than Allen Robinson.
That was his. I mean, I would hate to look back at my list. I'm pretty sure he was on one of my safe lists, because he's been so good for so long with not a lot of help. I mean, we're talking about Blake Bortles, we're talking about Mitchell Trubisky, and he always produced for the most part.
He did make one of my lists too this preseason.
Yeah, and it was pretty wild that
he made my bust candidates list.
There we go. Well, at least that's good.
There we go. Bust candidates. And there. I didn't expect this.
No, I didn't think it was going to be worse with Fields.
In PPR, he has the same points per game as Donovan Peoples-Jones and Alan Lazard. Like, that, it is bad. Like, he is legitimately just droppable. Like, it's I still have a hard time doing it.
Yeah.
He is. Why wouldn't he be? You can drop the guy. I'm looking at the receivers around him. So, I mean, Cooper Kupp was 21st in the preseason ranks. Jeez. But there's no one else. Everyone else, there may be slight disappointments around this list, but everyone else has performed. You know, even let's start like at Justin Jefferson, a couple spots ahead. Justin Jefferson, good. Terry McLaurin's been solid. Mike Evans has been good. CeeDee Lamb's been good. Then it's Allen Robinson. Keenan Allen's been fine. Chris Godwin's been fine. Amari Cooper's, he had one good game. Robert Woods, we know he's been poor, but I'd still rather have Robert Woods right now than Allen Robinson. Julio at 17 he's been hurt, though. I don't want to hold that against him. Allen Robinson's actually literally played every game. And he's just that bad.
Brutal.
I mean, there's no one else, right, that even possibly, there's no one out there that has played all the games and even comes close.
No, I'm trying. Is there another one that you would bring up?
At running back, Mike Davis has been a pretty big disappointment to most people. Not necessarily to us, but in general, people were drafting him sometimes as a running back too.
That's a good point. I didn't really think about him
because we weren't on it. But people were, and that has been definitely a disappointment. If you're looking at the top of the list, though, Brandon Ayuk, that's the other one. Brandon Ayuk, He was ranked 22nd in preseason ranks. 22nd. And he's in that Kyle Shanahan doghouse, it seems like. You just get in there and it's hard to get out. He plays a little bit, but he's not the focal point at all. And him and Trey Sermon both don't seem to get any work, but Trey Sermon wasn't expected. Brandon Ayuk was 22nd. He was ranked 22nd. Debo was 33rd. It's crazy to see the difference. And Debo's now a top 10 guy, and Brandon Ayuk's not even usable whatsoever. But that's about it. Those are like out of the top 30 even, out of players, if you just without injury. Well, you can go to 31, Robbie Anderson. There's the next. Right?
Yeah.
And he was, but 31, Robbie Anderson had better production than Allen Robinson, though, which is sad to say. So at wide receiver, those are it's obviously Allen Robinson, then is Brandon Ayuk and Robbie Anderson are those disappointments. Running back, honestly, there really isn't much at running back. Everyone's kind of either been hurt. If they're not hurt, they've been okay. Antonio Gibson's probably the biggest disappointment at running back. Then if you look at like a top 10 back, he was ranked 10th. But it's that shin fracture that's hurting him, I would say. Nobody else. Miles Sanders, that might be one.
Yeah,
it's probably Miles Sanders for a guy that he's always hurt.
Where was Myles Gaskin ranked before?
Miles Gaskin was 24th. So
okay, he held up his value.
He's fine because it's up and down. But somebody like him, but no, Miles Sanders is hurt now. But
I feel like Kenyon Drake was Drake.
No, he was down there. He was at 38th.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I feel like there's got to be one more guy, but maybe not. Maybe everyone was pretty in line.
No, and it's really not. Those are the guys. Allen Robinson's just such a standout of being terrible. He's and
I really do feel really terrible for him. I mean that
Trubisky. You know what? This whole Justin Fields thing has made me think. Wait, was Trubisky the problem, or is Matt Nagy that bad? Maybe Trubisky's actually was outperforming what he was, or what
could be
what Nagy was letting him do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Ugh.
I mean, Trubisky actually put up some numbers in that offense, and Fields can't do anything. And I don't know what to think about Fields. It's hard to say. I feel like they're not using him correctly. So I guess he's been a disappointment. If you want to say like fantasy-wise, you thought Justin Fields was going to go in there, and if he got the shot, he'd actually be a good quarterback. And it's terrible. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't think he was going to be a, quote unquote good quarterback, but I did think he was going to be able to put up more points for sure. I also thought he was going to run a bit more. I also thought he was going to throw it down the field to Allen Robinson. I mean, there's definitely some weapons on that team. I don't know. It's hard to say why they can't move the ball and why he looks so poor. I mean, it happens to a lot of rookie quarterbacks, but you can score some fantasy points, even if you're turning the ball over here and there.
Do any of those, like those wide receivers, talk about anybody there even possibly think they can turn it around? Or is it just Allen Robinson just done?
No, I think he's done. I mean, not for next year, but this year, yeah, I think he's done. And that'll be the interesting part. The interesting part will be where can you get him next year, and are people going to believe in him? Because this was so bad that it's hard to see any silver lining. But you'll be able to get a huge discount on him next year if you believe in him. I guess the other person I do want to bring up, he hasn't been bad, but compared to where he was, Stephon Diggs.
Okay, that's what Matt was going next. Yeah. He's at in PPR. He's at 15.9 points per game. He's 19th in PPR in points per game. I just pulled that up. So PPR 19th.
They did have a bye.
Yeah. So in points per game, he's 19th.
Yeah.
That's actually, he was a top three, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That, you know what? It's getting overlooked a little bit, but I think that's definitely, that's up there.
And he played all of them too. We're not talking about like AJ Brown who missed a game.
Well, so it's him and
had injuries.
Calvin Ridley's kind of there too, to be honest.
Yeah, he is. He has. First, I mean, they did have their bye, and he missed a game against the Jets, which could have been up there.
Calvin Ridley's points per game. Okay, here we go. Calvin Ridley's points per game is the same as Robert Woods.
Really?
Yeah, 14.2 for both of them.
Yeah, I think the difference is Atlanta's been really terrible, and the Rams have been really good. So,
well, Calvin Ridley, this is all PPR, but 14.2 in PPR. Michael Pittman, Jalen Waddle, 14.1.
Yeah, wow. I do think that there's a good chance Ridley can turn it around.
Ridley, I'm okay. Diggs, I'm actually, you know what? I'm not out on Diggs at all. I think Diggs is going to turn this around. I think Ridley can turn this around. Those guys I believe in.
Yeah.
Like Robinson, I do not.
No.
Like those kind of things. It is crazy when you look at that, though. I didn't really truly realize how bad that was. You know what's also kind of a crazy thing is, remember how great Tyler Lockett started the year?
Yeah.
His points per game now is less than Chase Claypool, less than Marvin Jones, less than Christian Kirk, less than Corey Davis, less than Waddle, Pittman. With that start, if you want to look at disappointments, weeks 3 and on, he's been terrible. It's not going to get any better till Russell comes back. That's been a pretty big disappointment. T. Higgins is kind of slightly disappointed, I would say, in a way. Not too crazy, but he's lower than some. He's like T. Higgins is lower than Hunter Renfrow in points per game.
Yeah, he's been a little disappointing to me. He started off really well, and then Chase really took over. But comparatively to where he was being ranked, still okay. And I think that offense is doing so well that there's still a time for him to be a pretty good wide receiver. The other guys, and I know that he did battle a little bit with injuries, especially early in the year, but like Kenny Galladay never got it going. Yeah. He hasn't really. I mean, what, he missed one game?
Well,
or two?
Yeah, the Kenny Galladay thing. I mean, obviously it's been some injury, obviously, but I just think in general that signing was poor. I think the Lions didn't sign him back for a reason. It wasn't just because they were going in rebuilding mode. Just giving Kenny Galladay a contract like that after missing almost the entire year last year being hurt, I just didn't think it was worth it. And we'll see. We'll see if he comes back. I mean, he had one good game, I think, this year, but when he did play, I don't know. I don't see it happening. I just don't with Galladay.
No, I don't either.
I think he's going to be not even the best receiver on that team very soon. It's going to be Tony when he's healthy. Yeah, he's one for sure. I don't even think about him anymore. He's kind of just off the fantasy radar for me. So I'm dropped in a couple leagues. Yeah, but I would think more highly of than Allen Robinson though.
Right.
Oh, then Odell. I guess Odell.
Yeah, Odell always finds his way in.
Again, he got hurt again, but man, what happened? Like,
I don't know. I pretty much at this point, I kind of put him and Juju in the same camp, where it's like, where did you go?
Yeah. What? I don't understand it. Like Odell he was so good. It was so good. And I don't know. I don't get it. It's unbelievable. You can't say it's the team necessarily because it's an okay team, I would think. Something doesn't click. It's such a mystery to me.
Yeah.
Maybe he just doesn't have it anymore, but I just feel like that's just, I don't know. Maybe the injuries really took a toll on him. But all right, there we go. There's some disappointments. Some that we think not to worry about. I still wouldn't worry about Diggs, honestly. Diggs is one of the biggest ones on there that I'm just like not. I think that's going to be good. I think you're going to have a really good second half of the season. I actually would go trade for Diggs, to be honest. I think it's going to turn around big time. Other ones, Allen Robinson, release him. I don't know. Just stop. Don't think about him anymore. But all right, there we go. We'll be back talking about Thursday night football. What do we got this week? Thursday night football. I should look up that schedule. Do we have a decent one this time? Packers Cardinals. There we go. I like that.
That'll be a fun one.
It'll be a good game. So we'll talk about Packers Cardinals right after it's over. But all right, talk to you guys then.